CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger has been looking into the issue of elder abuse and has the results of a new survey.
We talked to her a bit earlier today.
So tell us about the survey, what you looked into and what you learned about how vulnerable the elderly can be.
Well, we have been knowing for the past few years that there's been a spike in financial elder abuse. And we saw that in that Stanley case where he was victimized by someone who was supposedly taking care of him. Well, Wells Fargo has done a survey of Americans who are age 60 and over, and they had to have at least $25,000 in investable assets. From this survey, we found that 98% say that older people are susceptible to scams. 46% of those folks who were surveyed say they know someone who's been a victim, and yet, this is kind of weird, just 10% say, oh, I am susceptible. And what's that disconnect is actually passing through to their children. Adult children say that they think that their own parents are not going to fall victim. And I think this is a huge problem. We know they are falling victims to these crimes, and yet no one's protecting them.
What's the most prevalent scam that the elderly are facing?
You know, I would say it's a very old one, that many older people still have physical checks that go to their homes. And as a result, that there are people who intercept those checks and try to deposit them, forging their signature. So one of the big checkpoints that we really want to put out there is that you have conversations with your family members, your older family members, and you really try to say to them, look, we've got to get these checks direct deposited so others cannot cash them. And in fact, there's a new rule as of 2018, which actually is very good to help protect your parents. You can go to the bank and you complete what's called a trusted contact form. This allows financial institutions to put temporary holds on funds or securities of customers where there's a reasonable belief of financial exploitation, and then you are contacted.
What are some warning signs for children of the elderly? What should they be looking for?
Okay, so what you want to be looking for is your parent might tell you about someone new on the scene who's trying to sell them something. Someone who has maybe approached them to try to get a financial product sale in place. And this happens a lot. Also want to take a look, if you can, at your parents' checkbook or their bank account statements. There are actually new services which can help to identify erratic financial activity, and they can actually notify a trusted advocate if something unusual pops up. I think the more important issue here is that you've got to be talking to your parents, you've got to be talking to your older friends, and really be clear that they may not realize that someone who's trying to worm their way into their own lives is someone who could be dangerous.
A lot of older parents are intimidated by technology. They want to write out a check old school. They feel more secure that way. So how do you convince them that that's actually counterproductive?
I'll tell you what we did. I took this advice from an expert who was a fraud expert with my own mother-in-law who's 94 years old. And they said, you know what? She wants to write checks for certain things, but what you can basically do is say, hey, let me assist you. I can do some of the big things. You can do these other things. As much as possible, if you can automate your parents' bill paying, that's the best thing you can do. And my mother-in-law was a comptroller. She was someone who ran my father-in-law's business. So when I said to her, you know, one way we can avoid any fees or charges is we can have it automatically sent from your account. And I showed her what it meant, and then she signed on to it. I think the process is intimidating, but if you sit down with your parents and say, hey, your rent can be paid automatically, this electric bill can be paid automatically, and we can help you do that, I think it's a very helpful exercise to walk them through it. And you know what? If they push back in the beginning, leave it alone. Really, you don't want to have a bad Thanksgiving because you're trying to do this. But you also want to use experiences where you can say, hey, a friend of mine encountered this, or use an example, and they'll start to loosen up. And most people will really want to say this is an efficient way to get it done. And of course, you can write your check out to send a gift to your grandchild when you want.
Well, good advice.
Very good advice.
It's going to be a growing problem as the population grows older. Jill, thanks for being with us
Great
today.
to see you, Jill. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.